This presentation will focus on the inequalities between the classes in society, focusing on theories from Karl Marx and Pierre Bourdieu and how this affects education today. It will look at the effects of a capitalistic society and explain how cultural capital is a necessity in today's society. The first place to be observed in this presentation is a low socio-economic area, a town called Barnsley in South Yorkshire. Here are some photos of the town centre. As you can see, it is full of cheap shops, charity shops. There are also quite a lot of litter on the floor. There is also a second-hand market. These are often seen in low socio-economic areas due to the fact that the population are mostly working class with little money to spare, and they're often looking for a cheap bargain. This picture shows the types of clothes which are seen to be normal in this town. The clothes are quite dirty and old. These types of clothes are often associated with trouble causers, although in low socio-economic areas they are quite desirable and worn by many. On the left of the picture there is a man dressed up quite fancy wearing a suit, but as you can tell, looking at everyone around him, he does not really fit in, and it seems the man standing behind him sweeping the floor is looking at him, maybe wondering where he has been. The man in the suit will probably feel quite out of place from all the funny looks he will receive. Maybe some young groups may even say something offensive towards him. Here is an image of the dining options in the town. As you can see, there is not a very wide range of choice, fish and chips or a sandwich. These are obviously unhealthy options, normally due to the healthier food options being quite expensive. There's also quite a lot of graffiti on the shutter of the sandwich shop. In low socio-economic areas such as this one, antisocial behaviour is quite common due to the lack of places for the younger generation to meet and the fact that most of them can't afford to take part in many after-school activities, which results in them congregating in the streets. There is also a high unemployment rate in low socio-economic areas. In Barnsley, there was a 13% rate of workless households in 2019. Most secondary schools in Barnsley have been knocked down and rebuilt, merging two schools together because they were in an undesirable condition. The bottom picture is a newly rebuilt school. The top picture is a typical primary school building, quite old and dirty. If you take a look on the map on the right hand side, you will see that there are quite a lot of academy schools in the area. This is because many schools were failing, therefore were turned into academies. They have been heavily promoted as a means of pulling up the working class achievements as stated by Diane Ray, although she also states that it has turned out to be just political hype. This is a private school in Manchester where students have to pay school fees every year. Schools like this are often situated in high socio-economic areas and students often bored. Comparing this school to the ones we have just seen in Barnsley, this school has a much more desirable look. The building is clean and quite characterful. It has a green garden with plants and gives the assumption that students who attend this school are much more respectful than the ones who attend the free schools in Barnsley, due to how nice the garden is kept. Looking at this picture of Manchester city centre, you can already see the differences. The clothes people are wearing are much more elegant. There are more high market shops. Thinking back to the people we saw in Barnsley and the clothes they were wearing, anyone dressed this way in this area would be the odd one out, just like the man in Barnsley wearing the suit. Taking it further, if someone dressed like the men in Barnsley walked into Louis Vuitton, which you can see on the left of the picture, the staff working in the shop would not take them seriously and may even worry that they might steal something and therefore keep a close eye on them. Here are the dining options in Manchester. Much more high ends to the ones we saw in Barnsley, along with a much higher price, plus with an opportunity to indulge in something healthy. Karl Marx's theory of capitalism. According to Marx, there are two classes in a capitalist society, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie being the capitalists, the ones in charge, the business owners, and the proletariats being the workers. Marx's theory on a capitalist society states that the proletariat have little to no power in the economic system, due to the bourgeoisie monopolizing the production of business and buildings, etc., as stated in the Communist Manifesto. The proletariat must work to produce profit for the business while earning very little and enabling the bourgeoisie to keep the profit and expand. Thus, as Michel Dillon said, keeping an ever-growing economic and social gap between capitalists and workers. People are often too afraid to stand up for themselves and question authority, as this inequality has just become the norm, and people are taught from a young age, including within education, to respect authority. For example, at school, children are taught that any misbehavior or rebel will have serious consequences, preparing the children to be obedient citizens of a capitalist society from a young age. Workers don't want to end up losing a job they need to provide food for their family, and therefore keep quiet, allowing this inadequate social norm to continue. A capitalist society changed the way things are done. For example, Jonathan Wolff said that the capitalistic economy is full of people paying each other to do things that were once done without thought of payment. Things like taking care of children. In a capitalist society, it's unthinkable to look after someone else's children for free, even though it can be done out of good nature. He also spoke about how money commodifies, transforms and degrades human relations, again keeping that ever-growing gap between the classes and preventing social mobility. A reason for a lack of social mobility is one's cultural capital. Cultural capital is something that upper and middle class families already have before going into higher education to gain cultural capital. But what is cultural capital? Well, Bourdieu's theory of cultural capital consists of knowledge and behaviours and the ability to use educated language along with tastes and values, as stated in Brunell's presentation from Maureen Grenfell's book Pierre Bourdieu, Key Concepts. Upper and middle class children already have cultural capital before entering into education. They acquire this from their parents by reproduction of their behaviours. Joanne Valentini, along with two more authors, wrote about how culture is learnt at home first. She continues on how upper-class families tend to teach their children through the arts and theatre, along with visiting historical sites and teaching them to speak with proper grammar and pronunciation, whereas lower-class families tend to teach their children through showing them how to be handy around the house and how to repair broken items. With this in mind, it becomes quite apparent that the behaviours will continue through the generations. Lower-class parents tend to work a lot to provide for their family and therefore do not have the time or money to endeavour into cultural activities such as the arts, theatre and teaching proper grammar and pronunciation, nor have the money to pay someone else to do it for them. The parents have learnt this way of life from their parents, who also did not have enough money to teach them this educated language of grammar, etc., leaving them without the knowledge and even a possibility to pass on the language or cultural knowledge to their children, thus leaving generation after generation without cultural capital, due to the lack of time and money to learn and share. This is what limits social mobility. The time and money it takes to acquire and pass this cultural capital is just not available for working class families. Middle and upper class families use this to their advantage by reproducing cultural behaviours through the generations, keeping the family within their social status. This has been going on for so long that it has since been accepted to be normal, keeping the lower class families at a disadvantage. Privately educated children normally do well. They will have more opportunities, as seen in the documentary A School Swap, The Class Divide. At Warminster School, a private school costing £27,000 per year, people of importance often visited the school to meet the pupils and showing how life could be like in the future. This boils down to the popular saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In some cases this is particularly true. For example, children who are taught in a private school costing £27,000 per year are normally the offspring of upper and middle class parents with high-end jobs or jobs of importance. State schools, on the other hand, such as Brenrose Secondary School in Derby, who also took part in the documentary, did not get visits from people of importance, therefore giving the pupils no inspiration for the future. Most of the children in state schools come from working class backgrounds where all the children know is a working life. They don't know what it's like to be on the top or know how it works. This brings in the capitalism pyramid, with the rulers at the top, in this case being the parents of the privately educated children. Then comes their children, and at the bottom are the working class parents and their children, who are in state school. This is not to say the quality of education is better in a private school. As seen in the documentary, they just do things differently and have a longer school day. They are also taught etiquette, which many already have from their parents. They also have a different experience, as many of them board. Upper class children are often brought up knowing they will do well. They may follow in their parents' footsteps or pursue something new, but they will succeed. And if they don't, of course there will be the inheritance, which will keep them up in that upper class bracket. This ties in nicely with what John Smith and Terry Rightly talk about in their book, that children's ability is predetermined by their genes, meaning that upper and middle class children will automatically get the grades they need due to the fact their parents have high intelligence, proved by the high-end jobs they have, which keeps them within that middle and upper class status. On the other hand, working class parents often work low-skilled jobs, showing their apparent lack of intelligence, which is then passed on to their children, and then their children will follow and become a low-skilled worker, maintaining their family class status through their life, due to the lack of social mobility. Woolf wrote something very similar, and it is proving that unfortunately this is the truth, and even the working class children with a high intelligence often go unnoticed, while the not so bright upper and middle class children take their place. This is because social behaviours get reproduced through the generations, showing the working class children working behaviours for them to follow. This keeps the working class at a disadvantage, as they need to keep working to provide for each other, leaving no time to advance. Working class children lack cultural capital due to the fact they don't acquire it at home through cultural activities. The clothes we have seen acceptable in Barnsley would not be adequate enough to attend cultural events, as they require elegant clothing and also cost quite a lot. Less working class students tend to go into higher education because they need to work to live. However, as you can see in the statistics on this page, 43% of students from low-income families do attend higher education, succeed and gain cultural capital, which gives hope that meritocracy does exist. In conclusion, there are many inequalities in the social classes, in and out of education, within a capitalistic society. Hopefully one day in the future, lower class families will find more time to develop cultural capital and advance to higher education, phasing out these inequalities for good.